Welcome to Rise Untold, where the stories behind the spotlight come alive. It was 1969 that the world was burning with revolution, war, and rock and roll. But inside the walls of California's San Quentin State Prison, laughter echoed, and the man behind it, he wore black. He sang like thunder, and he made inmates laugh harder than they had in years. That man was Johnny Cash, and the song, A Boy Named Sue. You know it that you've probably laughed at it. But what most people don't know is that this funny, almost ridiculous hit song, one of Cash's biggest ever, was recorded in front of men serving life sentences. And the way it came to be was anything but funny. Johnny Cash wasn't a comedian. He wasn't even really a country singer in the traditional sense that he was rebellion in boots. A baritone outlaw who sang about pain, prison, justice, and Jesus, sometimes all in one breath. But in January 1969, he did something no one expected. He walked into San Quentin with his band, his wife June Carter, and a guitar full of songs, and performed the boldest, most unfiltered live set of his life. No script, no safety net. Just fired at it was there, surrounded by convicted men and prison guards. That Johnny Cash performed A Boy Named Sue for the very first time that no one had heard it. Not his fans, not his band. Not even June. He read the lyrics off a piece of paper while singing it live. Point one take, point one chance. And the room exploded with laughter. You could feel the walls shake. Men who hadn't laughed in years roared that it was comedy. It was absurdity. But it was real, and somehow it struck deeper than anyone expected, because the song wasn't just about a boy with a funny name. It was about pain, identity, masculinity, and the fight to be seen in a world that only taught you how to survive. And we're better to sing that than a prison? Cash didn't write the song. That honor belongs to Shel Silverstein. Yes, the same man who wrote children's books like Where the Sidewalk Ends. But it was Cash who gave it teeth. And it was the inmates who gave it meaning. You see, by 1969, Johnny Cash wasn't just an entertainer. He was a symbol. He had never served hard time himself. But he understood prison. He sang about it. He empathized with it. And more importantly, he respected the people inside it. His prison concerts weren't publicity stunts. They were missions. He once said, I was in the prison band in San Quentin, even though I was never an inmate. He saw the humanity behind the bars. And in San Quentin, those men saw him not as a star, but as one of their own. When A Boy Named Sue played that night, it felt like a rebellion. It was a moment of joy in a place built to break men. And somehow, a silly song about a boy fighting his father over his name became a national anthem. When Columbia Records released the live recording just months later, it exploded. It reached #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. That's right, Hot 100. Not just country, not just outlaw fans. Everyone was singing it. People laughed. But the story hit deeper than just humor, because the truth is, the song's heart beats with pain. A boy abandoned by his father. A name that became a burden. A life shaped by resentment and survival. Until one day, he confronts the man who made him. And what does he find? Not answers, but a mirror. That's Johnny Cash. That's what he gave the world. A mirror. Sometimes cracked, sometimes funny, sometimes unbearably raw, but always real. The world saw a funny song. But in that prison hall, it was something else. It was freedom. If only for 3 minutes. It was a reminder that even in a place built to kill laughter, joy could still sneak in. Johnny Cash knew what he was doing. He wasn't just singing. He was giving men hope. He was giving them a voice. He was showing them they hadn't been forgotten. That maybe, just maybe, they could laugh again, even if they'd never leave those walls. A Boy Named Sue wasn't written for them, but in that moment, it belonged to them. And maybe that's the true genius of Johnny Cash. He didn't just tell stories. He became the story. He didn't perform at people. He performed with them. And in San Quentin that night, when his voice roared and the crowd howled, you could feel it, the power of laughter, the rebellion of joy, the dignity in being seen. That's why the song still matters. Not because it's funny, but because it reminds us that even in our pain, we can laugh. Even in our brokenness, we can connect. Johnny Cash did that. He bridged comedy and tragedy, justice and mercy, bars and freedom. And all it took was A Boy Named Sue. Just a name, just a song, just a moment caught on tape in the most unlikely of places, But that moment echoed through prison walls, through radio waves, through families and factories and freedom itself. It reminded the world that sometimes laughter is more than entertainment, that it's resistance. And a boy named Sue, for all its jokes and absurdity, became something sacred that night. The next time you hear that song, don't just laugh. Pause. And remember the men who laughed for the first time in years, men whose lives had been stripped down to numbers and bars, men who hadn't heard joy without consequence, who hadn't smiled without suspicion. In a world that punished weakness and silence was survival. They laughed. They laughed like children, like free men, like something inside them had just woken up, not because the song was perfect, but because the man singing it was fearless. He wasn't afraid to look them in the eye. Sing with them, not at them. Treat them like human beings, not shadows. Remember that. Remember Johnny Cash, not just the singer, not just the legend, but the outlaw in black who stood on that stage in San Quentin, with nothing but a microphone, a piece of paper, and a heart full of truth. He could have stayed safe. He could have kept his career clean, played it safe on TV stages, polished, primetime, and politically correct, but he didn't. He walked into a prison with a guitar and gave men a moment no one else would. He gave them dignity, he gave them laughter, he gave them a song. And that's what legends do. They go where no one else will. They speak the unspeakable. They sing when others are silent. Johnny Cash didn't wear black for fashion, that he wore it for the forgotten, for the poor, the prisoner, the beaten down and left behind. A Boy Named Sue wasn't just about ABOY. It was about identity, about growing up hard, about becoming tough in a world that doesn't care. And that resonated with every man in that room, because in their own way, they were all a boy named Sue, fighting to survive, fighting to understand why pain shaped their path, why love was often brutal, why fathers disappeared, and forgiveness came too late. And through the absurdity of the song, through every verse and brawl and punchline, there was truth, that sometimes life doesn't give you answers, that it gives you scars, and from those scars, you rise. That's what Johnny Cash gave them. Not just a hit song, not just entertainment, but the reminder that even pain can be turned into something powerful, that even your worst days have a rhythm, that even behind bars, there's a stage. And someone might just listen, because maybe the most rebellious thing you can do in a place designed to crush your spirit is laugh. Laughter is freedom. Even if it only lasts for 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Even if it's the only freedom you'll taste for years. Johnny Cash understood that. That's why the moment still matters. Why the recording still shakes something in us, that it wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't planned, that it wasn't polished, that it was real. And in that realness, something sacred was born. Remember the legend, who risked it all to sing behind bars, who turned a silly song into a legacy, who gave men with nothing a reason to laugh. Because Johnny Cash didn't just perform at San Quentin, that he witnessed it, he honored it, that he carved a piece of history with a melody and a smirk. And in doing so, he reminded the rest of us what music can truly do. It can heal, it can challenge, it can remember, it can make us laugh when the world tells us to cry. And maybe, if they could laugh in a place like that, if they could rise from their chairs in a prison hall, roaring with joy, then maybe you can too. No matter where you are, no matter what you're facing, no matter how dark it gets, there's still a voice out there that understands you. There's still a song waiting to be heard. And maybe, just maybe, it starts with a boy named Sue. This is the story of Johnny Cash's boldest hit, a hit that wasn't about sales, but about soul. And this is Rise Untold.